This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We are internet friends turned real-life friends who both experienced the tragic loss of our sons to sudden infant death syndrome in winter of 2021.
In the year after Aeron died, my husband and I both became unemployed. My parents divorced, and we had to move 5 times for various reasons.
And as for me, just a few weeks before my son Quinn died, my then husband had come out to me as a transgender woman, and we're subsequently divorcing.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot.
But as long as we're living, we will love our sons deeply and work to make sure that we live a life that makes them proud.
Welcome to As Long As I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Hi friends, Alina here. If you read the description, you know that it's been a tough couple of weeks for both me and Judith. I've had all this medical stuff going on, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to the episode Answers and Questions, or go to our Instagram because I talk about it on there too. There's a saved highlight called Alina's Heart. So I've had medical stuff going on, and Judith is coming out of a full season of high holidays, and she is exhausted, and we have not been able to get our act together to regularly record over the last couple of weeks, so we are behind. For that reason, we are doing ourselves a favor this week, and we are releasing content that we recorded a long time ago that you guys have never heard. We actually did this back in January around Quinn's death anniversary because I just did not have it in me to edit an episode. So all the clips you're going to hear in this episode are recorded during interviews that we've had with people. These are sections that we cut for time, but we love each of these little snippets, and we hope you like them as much as we do. A quick announcement that honestly I couldn't be more proud of. I went to see Nora McInerney's Terrible Things for Asking podcast live this past week, and I won the Bummer Award. Do you know what that means? That means in an entire theater full of people, my life story was deemed the biggest bummer. And you know what? I am so proud. I was laughing so hard. I felt so validated and so seen. And while we all agree it's useless to compare traumas, I know mine is bad, and it just felt good to have people recognize it as such. So if you don't follow Nora McInerney, her Instagram handle is @NoraBorealis, and the podcast is TTFA Podcast. Terrible Thanks for Asking podcast. She has a new book out called Bad Vibes Only that you should absolutely read. She has a bunch of other books. I'll try to remember to link all of this in the description. And I'm also going to link in the description one particular episode that really hits home for me. It's an episode she released the week after she gave birth to her youngest child with her new husband after her first husband had died of brain cancer 2 years prior. And there's something about the real authentic vulnerability in there where she does not have it all figured out. She just is. That really hits home for me. And as I'm rebuilding my life with all of my shit, it feels good to know that there are other people out there who are doing the same thing. On that note, I have a lot of shit. I think you guys all know about that. You know my whole life story. You know that I just found out 6 weeks ago that I could die suddenly of a heart condition. These are all big, obvious things, but what you may not know is that Judith is also really struggling. I have a lot of space for my grief. I don't have any living children. I have a partner, but he doesn't live with me. And, you know, I have my own space that's quiet, and I can feel my feelings however I need to. And I have a job that lets me work from home. So as much as I'm suffering, I'm suffering privately and with room to suffer. Whereas Judith is suffering in a partnership with a new baby, and she does not have a lot of room right now. So anytime you're thinking about me and my broken heart, I hope you remember that Judith also has a broken heart, and she needs your loving thoughts just as much. Okay, With that, I am going to send you into the first clip of this episode. This is a clip from our interview with Jenn Su. She is a pediatric cardiologist and the founder of Aeron's Foundation. Her son Aeron died of SIDS a few years ago, and she started Aeron's Foundation to try to educate people about SIDS. They also provide genetic testing for families that would like to find out if there are any causes they can prevent in future children. Please go listen to her episode if you're interested. She has so many wonderful insights. The episode was mostly focused on returning to work. Like I said, she's a pediatric cardiologist, which is a job you really can't be bad at, unlike my job and Judith's job, which are not important. So go listen to that episode. But what I'm about to play for you now is Jenn talking about words of comfort. I'm using air quotes because there are so many things people say that they think are going to be comforting and they just don't land. They just don't. We've actually made a whole episode about this topic since then. It's called I Can't Imagine. I'll link it in the description. But Jenn has some really wise words, and I think you'll all commiserate with her. So with that, please enjoy Words of Comfort with Jenn Su.
One of the reasons I actually quit my job, and one of the reasons I decided I didn't want to come back, is because people are awkward about death. And people were so awkward and uncomfortable around my loss that it made me feel like they were almost like looking at me, like they were watching me for something. So I'd love to hear, was your experience going back to the same place that you'd been before? And because your community is aware of loss, do you think that they were better? Was it really hard to be in front of all those people? Did you feel like people were watching you too? How did people treat you going back?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I can totally relate. And I think that's in part why I was not full time, and I think in part, going back 1 day a week first and then 2 days and 3 days when I was ready, it kind of helped with avoiding the barrage of, platitudes and, I'm so sorry, or I know exactly how you feel because my uncle's son's daughter died or something. There were just so many misguided, very well-meaning, but at that point in my life, angering, comments. And I quite honestly, not just at work, but in my personal life, cut some people out of my life, at least partially, or at least for a while, because I just didn't want to snap at them and be this really mean, unforgiving person. And I just didn't want to, explain to them or apologize for my feeling. I was just, I don't need you in my life right now. I'll come back to you when I have the capacity to deal with you. Yeah. Kind of.
If maybe you'll tell me, because it's been a while that some of these friends I haven't been in touch, but I completely understand what you're saying. It's one of those feelings that you can only describe when I think you've been through an experience like grief, where it's people are talking at you, not to you, or talking at an idea of what they think would be helpful, but they don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of the platitudes come from a place of them feeling so desperately sad for you. So they want to say something that will make themselves feel like they tried and like they were helpful. And that just doesn't really land. I'll just say that. And I know people really mean well. They genuinely mean well, but on the receiving end of it, typically it doesn't feel good.
There were really only 2 or 3 things people said that actually I responded well to, and they came from people who have lost loved ones. Just, I'm sorry because I know this is so hard, and just leave it at that. You don't need to say anymore. Just recognize that the situation is really horrible. Mm-hmm. Or if you would like to share, I would love to hear about Aeron.
Yeah.
Every mother wants to talk about their child, especially one who they can't see and hold anymore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just very simple.
I think we've all experienced that. Oh, my nephew's college roommate's, child's kindergarten teacher had a baby who, died of SIDS. It's like, why are you telling me that? That doesn't make me feel better. I don't know that person. You don't even know that person. Like, we don't even know their name. Like, yes, babies die of SIDS. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. I bet if I put a poll up about this, it would be 100%. Yes, we've all gotten that exact words of comfort from somebody, and let's be honest, it is not comforting. So, like I said, I'm going to link in the description the rest of Jenn's episode. She has a lot to say, and we encourage you to go listen to it. All right, next up, we have Katie Joy Duke. Katie is an author. She's a memoirist, and she is Poppy's mom. Her daughter Poppy died during labor, and she actually just published her memoir this year. It's called Still Breathing, and it's lovely. It's a lovely representation of Poppy's story, of Katie's story, and Katie found out earlier this year that she had breast cancer, and she's been undergoing treatment since then. We recorded this in June when she was still in chemotherapy, and as I'm recording this, she's actually heading into surgery, a mastectomy, tomorrow. So if you are listening to this, send Katie Joy Duke your well wishes, and we hope the surgery goes well. This little clip I'm about to play for you is us chatting with Katie about how when it rains, it pours. It kind of feels like trauma follows people. I know both Judith and I feel like we had kind of easy lives, and then all of a sudden one bad thing happened, and then it was like bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. And we know Katie feels the same way. So with that, I am going to send you into Katie Joy Duke, When It Rains, It Pours.
We want to talk to you about the idea that like when it rains, it pours. Okay. Like just like you've had bad news after bad news after bad news. And one of the things that I've noticed is with people who've had like infant loss or really loss in general, it's like it's not just one thing. It's like the whole universe just like the whole universe just falls apart. It's like it's not enough for it to be just one thing. It's like it's not just that Alina lost her son. It's like that her partner came out as transgender and that led to the separation. Like for me, it's not just that I lost my son, and it's that
you lost your job. Your husband lost your job.
My husband. We all lost our jobs, and then we were homeless, and my parents got divorced, and we weren't actually homeless. We were just homeless because my parents got divorced, and then we couldn't live in that house anymore. My point is that it's not just the loss. It tends to be like the loss magnified by a million other factors. And I think that you, with your recent cancer diagnosis, it's like to the nth degree.
It really is freaking nuts how trauma seems to travel with certain people or whatever. Yeah. Like, I feel like ever since this happened, I really don't want people to be like, damn, that bitch is a drama queen. Like, what?
I think that people are just like, oh my God, that bitch has really bad luck.
I know. And I don't really feel like I don't want all that sympathy. I really don't.
It's not sympathy. It's pity.
It's pity. It's not sympathy.
It is. Thank you. I don't want people's pity. A message on Facebook from a woman who's like, Katie, I lived across the street from you growing up, but we never really knew each other. She's like, I lost a baby several years ago, and I'm also dealing with cancer. And I cannot tell you how many women, y'all get your mammograms, like seriously, because I think, I don't know if there's any scientific anythingness to it. Those of us who have been through serious trauma, y'all, it's like a doorway. Cancer is like,
yeah.
I mean, seriously, like I was just like, what? I have cancer? I have stage 4 cancer? Like, I'm sorry, what?
Oh man, we laughed a lot recording that episode, which is crazy because we're 3 women who have each lost a child and we've had myriad other life struggles. But I think Katie shares our attitude of, it's happening. I've got to get through it and might as well laugh about it sometimes. So I'm going to link Katie's episode in the description. It's called Still Breathing, an interview with Katie Joy Duke. Next up, we have my very good friend, Emy Collins. Emy is somebody that I met through Empty Arms Bereavement Support Group, which is a program that I've been a part of ever since Quinn died. I think I went to my first support group within 2 weeks of his death. They provide all kinds of bereavement support. We've interviewed a couple of people I know through Empty Arms. Kira McMurrick, we interviewed her back in March. My friend Jill, who is Hadley's mom, who had a TFMR. I hope I'm not missing anybody, but Emy is the only person in this episode that I've actually met in real life and hugged, and she is a wonderful person and has a ton to say. Her episode was, in the editing, I wound up focusing it mainly on the intersection of race and infant loss, but we actually talked about many, many, many things. So what I'm about to play right now is a clip that I didn't have time to include in the regular episode, but this is Emy talking about the fact that the further out you get from your loss, you have so much less room to grieve. It's so much harder to ask for grace and forgiveness and time off, because people don't understand that even though your child died 4 years ago, they're still dead and you're still sad about it. And it's not just birthdays and anniversaries and holidays that are hard. It can be any random day. I'm sure many of you who are further out in the loss relate to this. I know I do. Emy's son Bash died in 2018 after an emergency delivery and about 2 weeks in the NICU. And it was traumatic. The pregnancy was traumatic. The birth was traumatic. You can find out so much more about this in the episode. It's called Calamity, an interview about race and infant loss with Emy Collins. I will link it in the description. And with that, I will send you into this clip with Emy. Enjoy.
What version of how are you doing do you want? What version of the real answer do you want? So I typically just give the I'm doing.
How's school? Is your semester done?
The semester is done. Oh God. Yeah, school is wild. School as a real life grown up is it's pretty weird in general, whether you have kids or not. So then if you're a parent, it's even weirder. If you're a bereaved parent.
Do you feel like out of place with all these youngsters?
I feel out of place sometimes. And there's just the reasons to like give excuses for needing a day off have like run out at this point for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm like coming up on 4 years. Yeah, it's 3.5 years. So I have like accommodations and diagnoses for things, but unless it's his birthday or you know, these big anniversaries that I can tell someone like this is just like a hard week for me. No one really gives a shit anymore.
Yeah, people tire of it for sure. And I think people assume it's, first of all, linear, which it is not. Absolutely. And they also assume that the hard days are the ones that you can kind of expect. But I think the hardest ones for me are just random.
Yeah.
Random. Which makes it hard to plan for, makes it hard to work around. And I also always get worked up when something comes out of nowhere because I'm like, I was doing so well.
Yeah. And no one makes space for that.
Yeah.
Even people who do know what really intense grief is like.
Yeah.
Comes up for people who lose their husbands or wives or spouses or siblings or their best friends. It comes up in every type of major grief, that sometimes it just hits you that you hear this song or you smell a smell.
Yeah, the air feels a certain temperature.
Yeah, and it just seems to be lost on everyone that the death of a baby could be very similar to the death of anybody else.
That's right. And in some ways I don't want to like compare grief, but you know, it's up there for the worst. Everybody says.
Yeah. It's your kid.
Yeah.
You know.
And you lose them in the present and you lose them in the future in perpetuity, so it doesn't end.
Yeah, a person's child dying, it's been like research has shown time and time again that it is the most devastating type of loss in a person's life. And I think when people hear it, they automatically think of like an adult child or maybe a teenager or a kid who has leukemia. And we just don't think of babies.
No, we don't.
Ever.
Yeah, I feel like there's a little bit more comfort in people's minds. They hear someone who lost a child and they hear, like you said, an adult child, or I do feel like there is some conversation around miscarriage, specifically miscarriage. Not enough conversation, certainly, but I do feel like if someone hears, that I feel like those two things, which are pretty much the opposite ends of the spectrum, but both losing a child, those are at least kind of talked about, I think. But it really feels like losing baby. Sometimes I feel like people think it's so tragic they literally cannot bear to even think about it, so they choose not to, and it always offends me. I'm like, I don't really get to choose not to think about it.
Yeah, and I felt this since the very beginning of my loss. I think I've even heard you say maybe at some point that you kind of feel the same, that that a lot of the focus is on miscarriage and stillbirth. And because losing an actual living baby, a baby within that first year of life who is born alive, especially one who goes home, or who lives, more than a couple of hours after birth, is so rare.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme.
That's right.
And it truly feels like there's no space for that.
Yes.
And so even when we do talk about pregnancy loss or baby loss, I often feel like I'm just kind of on the margins because most of that conversation is focused on miscarriages or terminating for medical reasons or having a stillbirth.
Yeah.
And it's not inclusive of having a child who was alive.
Yeah.
All right. Last clip. This one's a funny one. You may remember for Father's Day, we had the Sad Dads Club take over the podcast, or as they call it, the pod. Chris, Jay, and Rob are dads to Izzy, Bella, and Lila, who were stillborn a few years back. They founded an organization called Sad Dads Club. They're based in Maine, but they provide services for bereaved dads and partners everywhere online. They have a great Instagram account. They have a website, Sad Dads Club. And this clip, is about, honestly, one of the rudest questions I think anybody can ask anybody, but it's particularly painful after your baby has died or if you're facing infertility. And that question is, are you guys trying? It is so inappropriate and it can be so painful. So here's the sad dads talking about this infamous question.
I can definitively tell you, I wouldn't have known what to do had I not lived it. Simple small talk questions that really come up all the time. Like, oh, is that your only child? How many kids do you have? Are you trying? When do you want to have your next child? Or all these things that like historically are very much just conversational in nature and well-intentioned just hit so hard after you go through something like this. And to that extent,
sorry to interrupt, Chris, but can we talk about the fact that like people find it totally normal to say, are you trying? AKA, are you and your partner having sex with the, intent of trying to procreate? Like what?
No condom.
You can't ask that question.
It's like, I feel like you're thinking about me doing that now that you're asking me, which is making me largely uncomfortable. I'm going to go to HR and discuss the way I'm feeling. Yeah. It's like, you're definitely picturing me having sex right now.
Seriously, what a weird question. It is a bizarre question.
No, boss. I'm not going to respond to your question. Okay, sorry, Chris. You had something very sincere that you were going to say. I'm becoming a little punchy an hour and a half into the pod.
I don't even remember what I was going to say.
Okay. That was the Sad Dads. I'm going to link both of their episodes in the description. We had an episode called The Sad Dads Club. We also have an episode that was actually released on Father's Day, a bonus that's called Father's Day Wishes from the Sad Dads Club. So please share those with the dads, the bereaved dads in your life, or really anybody if you think they'd vibe with Jay, Rob, and Chris. We are big fans of the Sad Dads over here at As Long As I'm Living. So make sure to follow them. All of their information is linked in the description. So that's it for today, guys. We are sorry we couldn't get a regular episode out for you, but you know what? No, we're not sorry. This is a hobby. I mean, I'm just happy we have something to release, but we're sending love to all of you out there. Send some love to us if you're thinking of us. It's been a tough couple of weeks, but honestly, one of the bright spots is our As Long As I'm Living community, truly. So have a good rest of your day. Have a good week, and we will see you next week with a regular episode. Bye.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!